Good evening, and welcome to our bite-sized class number, I think, 20. So this week's parsha is Parshas Chukas, and we learn about, in the beginning of the parsha, about the para aduma, the red heifer. And the Medrash says that the reason behind the para aduma, and why it works, is that it was an atonement for the egel. The egel is a small calf, and the para aduma had to be a little older. So the Medrash says that let the mother, meaning the para aduma, come and clean up for the calf. The calf referring to the golden calf that this Jew served. And the mother is cleaning up, so to speak, the mess. The commentaries explain that when the Jews first received the Torah, so the concept of death was taken away from the world, just like it was when the world was first created. There was no death until the Eitz Hadas, till the sin of the forbidden fruit. So, too, when the Torah was given. But when they sinned with the golden calf, it once again, death came back into the world. Therefore, we have the para aduma, which para aduma is purifies from somebody who came into contact with a dead person. So it's the thing that purifies. That's the one way they become pure. And that sort of not only atones for the Chet HaEgel, but it actually purifies from what the Chet HaEgel caused. The Egel, the sin of the golden calf, caused that there should be death in the world. And the para aduma comes and cleans that up and also purifies. And that is the reason why, also, as the Rebbe explains, why the Rambam, when he enumerates all the para adumas that there were, he makes sure to stress that the 10th one will be done by Mashiach. The significance of that is, seemingly it's just a bit of history which doesn't really belong necessarily in the Rambam's book of laws, but the significance of that is that he's stressing that 10, which is a complete number, is going to be when Mashiach comes, meaning the complete purification and the concept of para aduma, which is to get rid of death, get rid of what the egel caused, is only going to be when Mashiach comes. That is the short vert for today. Going on to the Tanya. So until here, we were explaining the Tanya we had in the beginning. We were explaining about the godly soul, the nefesh elokis, and then we went on and explained about the animal soul that every person has. And we explained at length, maybe not so much at length in the classes, but at length, that each one of these souls is a complete, it's a complete being, so to speak, or a complete body. It's a complete thing for itself. Each one has its own set of 10 sfirot, 10 midos, 10 attributes, and they're sort of encamped in this chapter goes on to explain how each one is sort of encamped in a different place in the person's body. The godly soul is encamped in the person's brain and his mind and his intellect, and the animal soul is encamped in the person's heart. And these are, so to speak, two kings, two countries. They're fighting over the person, a person's body. We know that it is referred to in a number of places as a city. So, in a sense, these are two kings fighting over the same city. The city is the person's body, and these two souls are fighting over it, and they want each to completely control the body, meaning that the person's desires and the person's wants and the person's thoughts should be totally in its control. The animal soul, its camp, so to speak, is in the left side of the heart, and everything starts from there. It has a desire, and this desire and this what it wants and these thoughts, it spreads out to the entire body, including into the mind, into the intellect, and it's trying to get the intellect to follow its thoughts, because the animal soul, as we explained in previous weeks, also has an intellect, also has a mind. But its mind comes following the emotions, meaning it's dragging its mind, the intellect, to follow its emotions and to dwell upon the emotions and to fulfill its desires and emotions and so on. And it's trying to get the intellect, where the person's godly soul rests, to be under it. And it goes up and it's trying to get the intellect. On the other hand, the intellect, the godly soul, which is in the person's mind, that is working the opposite way. It has its control, its base, so to speak, is in the intellect, and it works its way down into even the right side of the heart. As we said, the animal soul is only in the left side of the heart, but the right side of the heart is it's not there, and therefore the godly soul is trying to get the person's emotions to be following what it wants, and its desires should be only for holiness. And therefore we have this fight, this major fight that's going on in the person's body and fighting for the person's soul, so to speak, even though it's two souls, but it's fighting for who should be the main dominant soul. And it is based on this, knowing that there's a fight, first of all, knowing that it's not the same soul. It's not the same, this that you sometimes want to do positive and sometimes negative. It's not that you're totally mixed up. On the contrary, it's normal. You have two souls fighting over, and sometimes one's winning and sometimes the other winning. As it brought in the pasuk, Zeh comes and nefel the aim le'aim yamatz, with regards to Yaakov and Esav. So in the blessings, so Yitzchak gives the blessing, and when he's blessing Esav, and he eventually says that when one's going to rise, the other one's going to fall, and one's going to fall, the other one's going to rise. And while that's talking about Yaakov and Esav in the literal sense, but the sages say it's also talking about in the spiritual sense. The spiritual sense meaning the Jewish nation and the non-Jewish nation, but even in the more spiritual sense, it's talking about in a person's body. There's the holiness, which is represented by Yaakov, and then there's the not holiness, which is represented by Esav. Esav was the hunter and man full of passion and emotions. That's represented by Esav. And that's what it's saying. When one rises, the other one falls. So it's normal that a person, sometimes he has a desire for good and sometimes he has a desire, maybe a negative desire. It's not that he's a hypocrite. On the contrary, he has this fight that's going on over him, and sometimes one's winning and sometimes the other one. So even though you maybe did something in the negative yesterday, and today you're doing good, and tomorrow, heaven forbid, maybe you'll again do something that's not on the up and up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a hypocrite. It means that sometimes you fall because you've sometimes stumbled and listened to the other soul, but that's not you. That's really two souls that are fighting over the person to have complete control over him. That is for the Tanya for today. And now getting to the halacha for today, short word. Question is, let's say you bought pots. People like to buy things, let's say on a garage sale now. And now is the season for garage sales. And there's an open box, the garage sale, and the person selling it says they were never used. Now these are it's pots from a non-Jew. And he claims it was never used. The question is, do you have to kasher the pot? Right? Because a regular new pot does not necessarily have to be kashered. But here, the person, you're buying it in the garage sale, you did not buy it in a store, and they're claiming that it's a new pot. So, at first glance, it would seem that this is a classic disagreement between Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Mechaber, Beis Yosef, and the Ramah, Rabbi Isserles. The Beis Yosef says that there's two conditions that you do not have to, you would not have to kasher the pot. A, it has to actually look new. And two, he volunteered the information without you asking him, and he said it was new. And the reason why we believe him, even though you don't always necessarily believe him, so the reason why we would believe someone in this instance is because we said it already went over 24 hours, and therefore it's anyways only rabbinic that you would have to kasher it. So therefore you would believe him. However, the Moshe Isserles, the Ramah holds that we would not believe him unless in extenuating circumstances that there's no other choice. Then you can use the pot without kashering, but preferably you have to kasher the pot. That's what the Ramah holds. And the truth is even Svardim, in other words, for Ashkenazim, follow the Ramah, and meaning they would, just because a person said it was new and it looks new, if it's not being sold amongst many new pots, we don't assume that it is actually new, and we do have to kosher it. That's what Ashkenazim hold. And the truth is, even Svardim would hold in this case, since it's question in this case that you would also maybe have to kosher it, since although we say that we assume the seller just volunteered the information, it's called Masiach Lefi Tumah, that he just volunteered the information, therefore we believe him. But over here, he has an incentive to say that it's new, because then he could charge more. And therefore, since the person has an incentive to say that it's new, and it's not like just he said it off the cuff, we would not necessarily believe him in this case. And therefore, even Sephardim may very well hold that you would have to kosher the pot. So to recap, first we said the vart that it says that in the Medrash that the para aduma is sort of the mother coming to clean up the mess of the child. The child is the egel, the chet egel, the calf, and the mother is coming to clean it up, and that's the para aduma. It said it's not just coming to atone for the sin of the chet egel, but it's actually coming to rectify what that sin did. Because according to the commentaries, the Al-Sheikh, when the Jews received the Torah, so death was taken away from the world, just as it was in the beginning of creation. And the Paraduma is coming to rectify the fact that after they did the sin of the golden calf, death came back to the world. So the Paraduma is the one thing that purifies from death, from impurities that come from death. And that's why the Rambam stresses that the 10th paraduma will be when Mashiach comes, because that's really when the complete cleaning up, so to speak, of the what the paraduma has to do will be when Mashiach comes. And until then, although it purifies from death, but death itself is still around. Now we explained in Tanya that there's two souls, each one is encamped somewhere else in the person's body, so to speak, and it's like two kings fighting over a city. And when one is on the top, the other one falls, and vice versa. And just like we have by Yaakov and Esav. And the importance of knowing this is to know that just because you did something wrong, something negative before, does not make you a hypocrite. On the contrary, yesterday maybe you fell, today you're listening to the godly soul, and tomorrow it could be the opposite again. And it goes back and forth. And therefore, a person shouldn't feel down by himself, because on the contrary, yesterday maybe you had a pull to not do something positive, but today you're able to conquer it and do something positive, which that itself, that's something that's positive, and you're going under your godly soul. And then we said the short halacha that if somebody finds pots, let's say in a garage sale, and the person says that it's new pots, so while ordinarily the Beis Yosef would hold, the Rabbi Yosef Karo would hold, that there's two conditions not to have to kosher the pot. A, has to look new, and B, the person has to say casually, meaning not that you ask them straight out, but casually, which is a halachic concept called Masiach Lefi Tumah, that it's new, so then you could rely on him. And the commentaries explain the reason why we could rely on him is because it's already was sitting without being used, not in the last 24 hours, and so on. However, Moshe Isserles holds that only in extenuating circumstances would we rely on that, but ordinarily we would say that you have to kosher. And we went further that it would seem that even the Svardim who follow the Beis Yosef would hold in this situation you would have to kosher, because there's an incentive for the seller to say that it's new. You could charge more. As opposed to when you're going to the store, if it's between many new pots, so then we assume that if it's between new pots, it is a new pot. We don't have to start thinking, oh, maybe it was used and somebody returned it, especially nowadays. They cannot sell it as a new pot. That is for tonight, and have a good night.